This is a podcast with Daren Libonati from Jampack and Chris Henry from Compendium Solutions. Welcome to our podcast, Leaders with Suspicions. I hope you enjoy.
So my name is Daren Libonati, and I started in the entertainment, sports, and festival business about 36 years ago. And I started as an intern coming out of college playing football at UNLV and was given the opportunity to work at a very powerful arena at the time. I started as an intern and got to kind of cut my teeth into the parking lot and lay out some strategies and opportunities on how we would do things in the parking lot. That evolved into working inside the building, and it didn't take me very long. And I was booking the building, and I was booking all the content that goes in that building, which then led me to 1993, where I leave with my mentor at the time, Dennis Finfrock, and we go start building the MGM Grand Garden Arena. In building that, what was really cool is the first time I got to meet Kurt Kerkorian. Kurt Kerkorian was the founder of that property and a legend in the casino industry. And we went to his boat, and he said, "What it is it? Do you understand what you're signing up for?" And I said, "Yes." And he had one mission. He said, "I want the world to forget that Caesar's Palace ever had boxing." Now, if you're old enough, you know Caesar's Palace was boxing in Las Vegas. And it was understood that he wanted this arena that we were going to build to be take over boxing. And that was his mission. And so I think we did that from 94, 95, 96. We hosted probably more boxing championship events in that Grand Garden Arena than anyone. And then on top of that, we also created all types of content in the space of music and other special events. There's not an A-list performer that hasn't played in our time in the Grand Garden Arena. I then left there in early 96, late 95 to open another arena. It's called the Star of the Desert Arena in Primm, Nevada at the state line. And this was a 6,500 seat arena. And the mission was, there's nothing around it. Las Vegas is 40 minutes. And the next city is probably Victorville, which is an hour and a half, or Barstow. So it sits in the middle of the desert, and we created an arena that would allow us to really find and sink our teeth into country music. And we built a wonderful stable of artists there, and that arena was called the Star of the Desert Arena. And we did that for about 2.5 years, and then I left and returned back to my original stomping grounds, which was the Thomas and Mack Center, Sam Boyd Stadium, and Cox Pavilion, where I picked up where I left off with just a different attitude, a different behavior, a different personality, all types of different types of thinking, because I learned so much in that first time that I was away. We were going to do everything on our own. I didn't want to have a food and beverage company inside the venue. Didn't want to have a ticketing company anymore inside the venue. Wanted to have every single part of what makes that venue work in-house so that we could communicate, share, and do all the things that are special for an arena. We evolved, and we did become our own ticketing company. We were probably one of the first people to tell Ticketmaster that we're leaving them and we're going to do our own thing. And we did it very well. We went on for 12 years having the greatest events you can think of in those arenas and stadiums, from the NBA All-Star Game to U2 at both the stadium and inside the arena, and the start of what is called NBA Summer League, the National Finals Rodeo, the Professional Bull Rider. Anything you can think of, we did it there with a tremendous amount of pride and excitement. In 2010, I was itching to want to do more. I flew to England to see Manchester United, the soccer team, and I was there with Pele, and the New York Cosmos because Paul Scholes was having a testimonial game, and I wanted to be there. I was trying to bring Manchester U to Las Vegas for a big event. It didn't work out with Man U and Pele and the New York Cosmos, but it did end up working out with Cristiano Ronaldo, Real Madrid, and Juventus. The tough and scary part about that game is we went on sale. Couldn't have been more excited to be bringing that to the Sam Boyd Stadium in 2012, actually August 5th. And about a month before the game, we had sold a ton of tickets and had a wonderful amount of money in the box office. And we were excited, and I got bad news. I got a call that Juventus was lured away from the 4 games they were to play in the United States to go play in China. And so all of a sudden, everything that was so great, these teams had to cancel. And so now I had Cristiano Ronaldo and Real Madrid playing who? So I had to immediately make a flip, and I found Santos Laguna out of the Mexican League, who had just won the championship there, and had them play Real Madrid. It was a great game still, but I upset a lot of people that were planning to travel and come to America and come to Las Vegas to see Juventus. That year, Juventus was the Serie A champion, and Real Madrid was the La Liga champion. And so it was just a wonderful opportunity, and it ended up crashing and burning for a minute. But we saved it. Not long after that, I returned back to the MGM in 2013 to start talking about building all their festivals. We wanted to be in the festival business, so I went as a consultant and started the process. We built 2 festival sites. I flew to Brazil to meet up with a big festival called Rock in Rio. It was both in Brazil and in Lisbon. It was a wonderful event, and we created that event and did it in 2015 at a 40-acre festival site that we built and put together, as well as a secondary site that was 15 acres. In 2017, sadly, one of the festivals we had, Route 91, we were shot at by a bad person who staged himself up into the Mandalay Bay, and he killed 58 people that night by shooting at them, and it was devastating and horrible. Not fun to witness, and so much pain and suffering came to so many people, from the artists, my employees, my teams, you name it, top to bottom. MGM then sold the site. By now, I am a vice president of festivals and entertainment. I went from consulting to jumping on the team in hopes that I'll go back to their boxing program and finish what I had started. We then continued to do our festivals until 2020, and we sold the other big festival site to Mr. Ruffin, which he owns it today, and there's still festivals happening there. COVID hits in March of 2020, and unbelievably to everyone, Las Vegas shuts down. And a handful of us presidents and vice presidents were let go because there was no people coming through our doors. It was probably the first time ever the doors were locked after they get open. People don't realize the day you open a casino, you never lock the doors. It's open 24/7 till the end, till we implode it. But for the very first time, everything was closed. COVID came, and I probably couldn't have been more excited. Now, that sounds awful, because nobody understood what COVID was, and nor did I believe we were going to be shut longer than 3 months, and we'd all be back to work creating what we were building and doing prior to that. Sadly, I ended up getting bladder cancer. I was on a long bike ride, came home. I found a little drop of blood in my urine, and before you know it, 3 weeks later, I was having surgery to remove a tumor in my bladder, which I didn't see coming, nor would have I expected it. And the long and short of it is we recovered just fine. But during that time is when we came up with the plan with a few other fellas to create Jampack. And and because of the history that I had just shared in all the events that I've done, thousands of events, there was one common thread on what we wanted to create. And because of my background in special events, running arenas, festivals, and stadiums, it made it very intriguing that I could talk to my industry. The other co founder, Andrew Satoris, came from a travel background. He was moving college kids on spring breaks and fall breaks from point A to point B, taking them to Cabo and different places and having wonderful experiences for them. And my third co-founder was running nightlife, building the Hakkassans and the Tao groups and going to different countries and opening these sites. So between the three of us, we felt we had the nucleus of creating something special. And here we are 4 years later. We've sold 160,000 packages. We've written checks for over 16 million to our partners, all because we were able to stop. And what I like to say is think, meet the need of what everyone needs out there and understand that first, then you can fulfill it. So as we prepared, we understood there was a need to take the ticket, the hotel, and the experience and bundle it all together so that Chris, when he chose his event, he could click that one button and have a full experience. So that's where we stand today in creating Jampack and what we're doing as a disruptor in the industry and changing behavior for how people choose to purchase their ticket and their experiences in destination cities. I better take a breath.
Wow. Yeah, wow, Darren, that's quite an introduction. Right. So I'll come back to Jampack in a minute, but there's just a few things in your story that I'd like you to sort of, for the audience, bring out a little bit more. So there was a bit very early on, right at the start, when you talked about creating your first venue. Yeah. And it was almost like, oh yeah, and one day I decided to, you know, be the man, do the venue, right? Can you just tell for the audience a little bit about, you know, were you born that way with that confidence, or were there some great mentors or coaches that helped you to get to that point where you could say, yeah, I'm going to do that? That's quite a
Well,
moment.
you ask a great question, and I don't know. I learned it until I went to play college football. We took a test, and the coaches, we had just lost our head coaches, and they took a test, and the new head coach wanted to find out who's the who on this team that can lead it, and what position do they play? Does their demeanor and behavior fit the right position that they're playing on the current team, or should they be somewhere else? And on that day, I took that test. And when it was done, I was called into an office and I was asked by the psychologist, who became a wonderful friend of mine and mentor and teacher, of who I am. And he asked me one simple question: who are you? And I said, well, I'm Daren Libonati. And he says, but where do you come from? What is your spirit? And I said, I don't know. And he says, you have what I call mountain climber mentality. I had no idea. I was 19. I was 20. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, mountain climbers climb mountains every day with no chains, no ropes, no hooks, no nothing. And they have one idea and thought that drives them. They have to get to the top. And the key word there was have to. He says, you have a have to mentality and behavior. Everything you do is a have to. It's not a want. So I was being educated at the time of who I was, but I didn't really grasp it really until I look back now and see all the things I've overcome as well as accomplished. And it all was driven by the first statement that man made is, where did you get this have to idea and personality? And I said, well, I think it's probably comes from my mom. She always told me I could do anything. And As a little fella, I think I could give it really reflect back at 7 and at 14. I had some really bad crashes. First one was on a bicycle. We created this jump, and when I jumped off, my front forks broke. I hit the ground with my chin. I hit the side of my head, and I cracked my skull and hemorrhaged out of my ear. Now, why do I say that? Well, it put me in a bad position as a little fella. I was 7, and it may not be every 7-year-old thinks like this, but I was devastated. I had to wear this big orange batting helmet to protect my head. My first feelings of "I'll show you" mentality came when I was 7, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was on the on deck circle. There was 2 outs. The guy batting before me struck out. So now it's 3 outs. I run in the dugout. I grab my mitt. I'm normally a pitcher or a shortstop, but they wouldn't let me because I'm wearing this helmet. I go out into center field, and I'm standing in the outfield as a 7-year-old. My fellow friends, which are all little kids, are running the scoreboard, and they yell, "Hey, Libonati, you're an idiot. You forgot to take your helmet off." And I'm sitting there as a little fella, and I remember it like it was yesterday. No, I didn't forget to take my helmet off. I just have to wear it. And then at school, I was wearing it. And they're like, "Why are you wearing your helmet?" Then I went to Dodger Stadium with my grandma and my great grandma, and I was supposed to go to Big Bear where it's high altitude, and I couldn't go because of my crash and my head. So I'm sitting in Dodger Stadium, wearing a helmet. And so I'll never forget that in that time was the first time I kind of dug into my own internal voice and said something along the lines is, "Okay, we'll see. We'll see." I don't know what we were going to see. Now I fast forward to 14. I'm a week away from starting school, just finished Hell Week. I was a running back, a flanker, a receiver, and a backup quarterback. I race one more time. I'm racing motocross, and I crash. And it knocks me out for about 16 hours in and out. I'm in the hospital. I wake up, and I got a broken arm. I got another bad concussion. And there's some concern because of my previous crash that, what did I do to myself? Long and short is I was having some equilibrium problems. They didn't have concussion protocol like they have today in the NFL. And they just said, "You're not going to play football again." And I was absolutely devastated. Nothing has hurt me more in my life deeper than that moment. Now, why? Because it's at the time at 14, it's all I knew. It's all I had. It was everything to me to play football for my high school. The long and short of it is I learned and made a decision that I'm going to learn how to kick field goals. And so once I didn't wallow in the wallowing pool very long. I didn't have a lot of time because school was going to start. I had a cast and I didn't know how to kick. So I worked at it. And so by the end of October, the season's almost over, I get my chance. And I could do it. And I made a decision on that day. I'm going to be the best kicker there is. And the long and short of it is I ended up getting a scholarship. I ended up going to Tulane University, and that's where I met the sports psychologist. So those 2 points of interest that I would say were key. And I would say to the audience, if they were in front of me or if I was on a podium, until you get, can we cuss on here?
Of course.
Well, until you get your dick knocked in the dirt and you're really down and out and you get yourself in a have to situation where there is no want. Hell, everyone at New Year's says, "I want to go on a diet. I want to do this. I want to do that." And 10 days, 14 days, 30 days later, they're not doing it because they just wanted to. Until you understand the difference between wanting to and having to, you're never going to succeed at the level you would hope, because commitment is knowing the difference between wanting to and having to. It's easy to get sidetracked when you want to. It's really hard to get sidetracked when you have to. So I think that's where that sports psychologist and mentor made the most impact in my life, because he showed me more about who I was and how I was wired to then, I think, help me make the decisions that I made moving forward in life.
You know, when you were starting to tell me before about your internship, I was thinking as I was listening to you, I'm really, really be interested to see what happened if somebody had given you an internship in an accounting firm. Yeah, how you would have coped with that. But I think given your interest in sport is pretty obvious about why you ended up doing something in a field that's interesting to you. Yeah. But
Yeah, there's no, I mean, I think what I found in that time is that I was attracted to who's the who that says you can't. And knowing that in some weird way, I think I had already beaten him, and felt like there are more people, and listening to how they talk and their behavior, that have more of a negative approach in that they can't do something versus they can. And what I love the most is the solution behind it. It's why I love being a coach. It's why I love football so much. It's why I'm intrigued with anything that has a strategic assignment to it of how are we going to do that? Hence, how are we going to build this festival? How are we going to lay out the land? How are we going to book this event in this arena? How are we going to convince this artist to come to us versus somebody else? How? I love the how, because I feel like I was always wired to say, here's how. We're going to do this, this, and this. And today I write a little thing every Monday. It's called Motivational Monday, and I pick a word. Last week's word happened to be momentum. The week before it happened to be discontent. And I'll give the definition of the word and then write my own 2 cents about what I believe the word really means. And as a perfect example, Chris, if I say discontent means X, Y, and Z, and then to me, discontent means it fires me up, it motivates me, it excites me, because that means I'm discontent in wanting to what I'm doing, and I want to be better at how I'm doing it. So what does it mean? I have to be resilient. I have to dig deeper. I have to look at the strategies I'm using to get better and continue. It's what sports is all about. You have to fail. You got to have to learn how to get up. Can you get up over the next hurdle and move forward? Or do you wallow in the wallowing pool? So as you ask me the question, where does that come from? I think that's all part of, I guess, my fortunate chemistry that I have, that I like and that I use. But I think we all have it.
yeah, I think if I just put some business speak in it for a minute, I think it's a little bit about risk appetite. And I find risk quite fascinating in business, mainly because I've worked in financial services and non-financial services. And I think there are many types of people, but if I just put them in two categories for now, some people see risk as a suffocating barrier, right? And other people see risk as something that they can live in and understand and work through and find that and get through it, right? It's not, it's people have different attitudes to dealing with risk. Some people mitigate it. I think you're in that category, right? I mean, when you're organizing these events and you're going to make it happen, in many ways, you know things could go wrong, but you're working on them to make them go right. Whereas
That's
other
correct.
people look at risk and say, I won't even try, I won't do it, it could go wrong. Yeah. And that's
Well,
part of
everything, I think you hit it right on the head. Every single thing I've been a part of it's been risk adverse. And that leap of faith. You know, it's funny. You just reminded me of something that man said to me many years ago when I was 19. He said, Daren, let me tell you something. Some people go to bed at night dreaming of being discovered, while others have nightmares of being found out. I know who you are. And that started our relationship. And it didn't hit me until later in life when I was actually in executive boardrooms, in big meetings at big properties here in Las Vegas, in big corporate settings, doing NBA All-Star Game, doing big events, and just constantly being around people from all walks of life, and being a young kid growing up in a family that had nobody go to college and only have Italian family members talking about how hard they work during the week and what a joy it is to be on Sunday having dinners and having an opinion about a favorite fighter or a team or a sport or something, but nobody's talking about how to be great in business. They're just talking about how to be a great man, you know? And so I think a lot of this comes, I don't know, that statement meant a lot to me when he said it. And I've used it a lot to people that I've been introduced to or shared conversation with or who've asked for guidance, because once you realize that you're more afraid of being found out than being discovered, you're in trouble.
I think some people are wired for, let's just call it a straightforward life, right? And some people are not wired for that. I worry about the people who are in the straightforward life and are not wired for it, and vice versa. Yeah, because they're
Right.
not being authentic to their chemistry, as you put it. Yeah, I think they're the ones I worry about, that they'll get to the end of their life, they'll look back and go, I didn't play that right. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a very good point.
yeah. Cool. Right. So you've had all this amazing experience and adversity, and you have to, right? So what made you have to Jampack?
I think after understanding for a minute what I had been through with Route 91 and the devastation I saw that it caused on people that were very dear to me around me, and losing someone at the event and finding them, and just that weighed heavy on my heart anyways. And then finding out out of nowhere that I got cancer pissed me off to no end, because it was one of those things that you just say, okay, here we go. I know how to handle this. I've been here before. I know what it looks like. I know what it smells like. I know what I have to do, and I know the behavior I have to have. So off I went. But as I was contemplating, when this COVID gets over, what am I going to do? Where can I be different? What can I do that's different that I haven't done already? And knowing the industry of sports and entertainment and music and running arenas and stadiums, there was always one common thread that rubbed me wrong the whole time. Is we do all the work, we do all the hustle, we take all the risk, and here comes Chris, who buys my ticket to an event, which I'm very grateful for. When he comes into my arena, I've got to swoon him to want to have a beer, a soda, a popcorn, food. I may have had to charge him for some parking. And when you added up all your revenues that you got to keep as a venue operator or a promoter, it sure was short, on the short end of the stick, compared to how much money Chris spent when he came to my city when he wasn't with me. So that wallet share, I always knew every week after a big event. So let's say we did the NBA All-Star Game. Let's say we did U2. Let's say we did 10 days of National Finals Rodeo and 170,000 people came. In every city and every country in the world, there's a group of people that will say, what a wonderful weekend we had here. The XYZ event brought in an incremental revenue of $70 million in hotels, experiences, blah, 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 blah. And I would wake up and say, son of a bitch, that's a lot of money. They didn't help me. They didn't share any of that revenue with us. And we were the creators, the founders, the people that were building it. So instead of fighting with all these artists to get them to come, or fighting with promoters to get them to choose you, to fight and push and argue with people to say this is the best choice, I wanted to be a friend of everyone. I wanted to be their best friend. I wanted to be able to say to them, hey, you got a minute? You and I have been doing this business for a long time. Last time I checked, we all shared this revenue called X. And some of that came from ticket revenue. Some came from food and beverage revenue, and they call that a food and beverage per cap. Some of it came from parking. They call that a parking per cap, and merch, and a merch per cap. And it's all done in some mathematical equation that said 18,000 people came, and let's say we bring all the per caps together and it's $22 a head, and that's what we're going to make in profit. Bravo. But nobody ever stood up in those rooms in my day, and now this is what I'm preaching is, does anybody know and can tell me where their super fan is coming from? Someone should be able to say, data tells us that Chris travels in from over 150 miles every time he comes to Vegas. Okay, great. Do we call him the super fan? Yes. All right. So shouldn't we have a category called the traveler per cap, TPC? What is our TPC value? And how do we make a change there? So for the last 4 years, I've been sharing the story of being one of the people I'm talking to in a past life, but trying to show them how just a different adjustment, a different way to think, a different way to create in how you sell your ticket could make a world of difference for your bottom line. Because we're not going to take any money away from anybody. We're just going to run it through our system and our portal to create a better travel per cap experience and give you the opportunity to pick. I have a feeling you might like Juventus and Real Madrid, and say, when I buy that ticket, I want a Friday night wine tasting. I want the ticket to the game on Saturday that includes some tchotchkes at my hotel. Maybe it's a mini Cristiano Ronaldo doll or a Juventus doll. I want on Saturday to be able to shuttle to the game. At the game, I want to be able to do this. And then, oh, by the way, on Sunday, I want a brunch before I leave with my likeness type friends and family that also love this event. So we started bundling and creating experiences and packages to offer to our people that were promoters once like me. And hence Jampack was born. And now we have done, hell, we've sold over 160,000 packages and wrote checks for well over $16 million to all of our partners, just by being able to rethink and strategize a new way to go on sale.
Yeah, it's very interesting you use some metrics in that. So other than TPC, have you got other metrics? Are you building out that portfolio of ways you view the world?
I think I just use TPC because in our world of entertainment, food and beverage per caps, merch per caps, and parking per caps are always spoken of, but yet the biggest revenue stream is maybe left behind. How we operate is Jampack is a platform. It's a tech platform. It doesn't cost the promoter any money. And what we do is change the thinking of how you go on sale. So it might sound like this, and we'll play a game as if it was let's let it be a concert or something. Don't miss the Rolling Stones coming live to Las Vegas, the Thomas and Mack Center Arena. Get your ticket, hotel, and experience package now for the first 4 days in this exclusive offer. So it's flipping the game to say you can't even buy a ticket, just a ticket to the Rolling Stones. You have to buy the bundle. Now, by buying the bundle, when you logged in, you had a choice to stay at maybe any of the MGM properties, a Caesar's Palace property, Resorts World, the Wynn, Venetian, Palazzo, wherever you want. We'll build that. My company will do that. But you'll now have a choice. After the fourth day, I might be coming back to the promoter and saying, well, you may not believe this. Yes, if we would have gone on sale day one, we would have probably sold every ticket. But that's all you would have got. But we happen to go on sale the way I shared with you, with a bundled package, and we embraced the super fan who was traveling no matter what, and you missed him the first time, and now he's yours. And we sold 5,000 packages. Now you may go on sale on Friday with the general admission tickets, etc. So you now control the valve, the behavior, the experience of how you want your fan to engage with you. So we're doing festivals of 60,000 people and selling 5 to 10,000 packages. And even then, even still being successful, it's still a learning behavior for promoters and entities to say, God, once we announce this, they panic because we've been trained to say, how many tickets does it take to break even? Your question earlier. What's the dynamic that we have to hit to take away the risk? So as soon as they can go to bed at night knowing they're safe, then they'll start worrying about packages and nonsense. When I'm trying to say it's opposite. Own the packages and the revenues because it's newfound revenue for you. Then worry about how you sell and trust you have the right artist or the right event or the right show that's going to continue to drive because you know who your super fan is. That makes sense?
It does. And it also, in my mind, I'm saying at the end of that, you've got a beautiful big database for
That's right.
yeah,
That's
to
right.
continue to A, learn and put together different packages and bundles and learn for what worked and didn't work. But also you've got a database of the super fans, the traveling fans that
That's right.
may or
You
may
learn
not
all their
travel.
behaviors. You learn what they like. You learn when they want to click an add-on and say, I want to do a brunch or I want to do a nightlife experience or I want to be a part of the 2,000 people that are going to go to the Atomic Golf and have 2 hours of drinks and hors d'oeuvres all for this one price. And so we just give them options that they can click through and then it all bundles together.
So earlier on, you talked about wanting all of that in-house, right? So have you got all of that in-house, all of the team in-house, the tech team, customer success team, product creation team, all in-house, yeah?
All in-house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct.
And what are your challenges? I mean, if this has not been done before, some stuff will
I
have gone
think, well,
well.
in what's great is there's a lot of copycats. And when we were sharing our idea and concept with Live Nation, there was a group of guys that said, well, shit, we can do that. God bless them. They couldn't do it as well as us. They're not as good as us. But what's beautiful is they're out there and they're continuing to teach behavior that this is the new way. And just after the Grammys the other day, Monday, Beyonce announced that she was doing a stadium tour. And the beautiful part is she was offering packaged ticket, hotel, and experiences in these 8 cities, which has never been done by a touring artist like her at that level, right? It's been done with us with big festivals, but the fact that Live Nation owns that tour is using a company within their division to try to create this experience. So for me personally, I want to see them be great. I want to see them succeed because it then again favors the fan to say, wow, this is a new way. This is a new behavior. No different than when I created our own ticketing company in 2001 and was told by Ticketmaster, you will fail miserably because fans only know how to buy tickets from Ticketmaster. And my side that I met with my coach or with the psychologist and the sports therapist was, who's the who that says we can't? You? Well, I don't believe so. We're going to do it anyways. And here's what I believe. When we go on sale with Bruce Springsteen and I announce that Bruce Springsteen's coming to this venue, and you buy tickets today by calling 702-47 or 739 fans, why is that any different than telling people to buy tickets from 474 4000 with Ticketmaster? It means nothing. You've threatened and scared all these people that they can't survive without you. And I'm just the opposite behavior, that when you fight me to say that I'm making a bad decision, really what you're telling me is I'm on the right track to make an unbelievable decision, because I'm getting rid of you and doing it our way because we can. And most people get tripped up right there, right at that roadblock where they know they want to, they know they could. And you're talking about a difference for us that during that time. And again, I had just become the boss of that entire complex, and I was in a have to mode. I was in debt $1.5 million on a new building that was built, and we weren't able to do what we wanted to in it to recover that money. So I was in a have to mode to say the $200,000 I'm getting as a rebate with Ticketmaster or tickets.com is not going to cut it. I'm going to do it myself. And instead of making 250, my team now was generating 3.5 million. Big swing, because we had to, not because we wanted. Well, I wanted to also.
Yeah, I get that. That's probably the wrong thing to say to you. You can't, isn't it? Right.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, this is, tell me what a typical day looks like. And I can't imagine you have a typical day, but if you just, as a leader, what do you do?
For me personally, I'm usually up by 6:15, and then I have to do something. So this morning, for example, I rode about 15 miles an hour on my bike, which is on a trainer. And I'll follow a program that I do in an effort to be the best cyclist I can be at where I'm at. And if it's not that day, I might be doing something physical. I coach field goal kickers. In that time that I was frustrated to have to become a kicker, I learned a lot about it. And from the year 1988 to now, I've coached 13 kids to full ride scholarships, and they never kicked a day in their life, following a lot of the same mental behavior that I have, I guess you could say, and some technique and skill sets. So I might be doing some exercises so that I can continue to kick. When I turned 50, one of my kids was talking smack that, coach, you show us this, you show us that, but I bet you can't kick a 50-yard field goal. And my inside voice said, listen here, you little fuck, don't ever tell me I can't do that, because I'm going to show you I can. Now, I was 49, so I had a year to get ready. And when I turned 50 on my birthday, I hit a 50-yard field goal. Well, I was doing that every year, 50, 51, 52, 53. And then when I turned 54, I had just found out I had cancer. So that year I had to pass. And then I've never tried to, my age keeps going up and the distance keeps getting farther. So I stopped doing that and just continued to kick. So I do those kind of things in the morning. I get into my office just before or around 9. And I start with the process of going around and saying hello to everyone, making sure they're all well, asking them if they'll tease me if it's Monday, because they'll have gotten the word at 5 a.m. that I wrote, and some of them will want to say, "Wow, it looks like you really got your momentum on today." Meaning I might be moving at a good pace, and that's just telling me that they read it. And I'll go into the office and just start making calls to people that I haven't been able to convince yet that this is the best strategy, and have meetings that way. And that's pretty much how my day goes.
Cool.
All day long doing that with different things. And because I've lived a lot of lives in a lot of positions, I'll have different individuals come to me and say, here's what I'm trying to accomplish here. What do you think? And I'll give my 2 cents. Some I'm a little more heavy-handed on, because I understand what they're up against, and maybe give them a couple different strategies on how to communicate with someone to get them to care about you and know that you're sincere, and try to impose to the people of the team that we as people are first. Policies, procedures, tech platforms, all that shit is just stuff. But it's you that they want. It's you that they care about. It's you that when you call, they say, I know I'm in good hands with these people. And I think that took some time. A lot of people were very pushing us back, didn't want us to tell them what to do and how to do it. Nobody wants to be told what to do and how to do it. So it took a little time to be able to not show your frustration that you're doing it so wrong. Let me help you. And that's a hard balance.
So you talked about coaching people to do kicking. You just started talking about coaching people in the organization, yeah? I mean, I can imagine you're probably quite a full-on coach, yeah?
I really, that's probably what I am most, a coach and a teacher of proving you can do anything.
Yeah.
And
And how do you
every
find that? Because
part of
not
life.
everyone's wired like you, right? It must
Yeah.
be, some people must find it harder, right? But yeah, how does that go? How do you deal with the different types of people you meet? Because it's different when
Get
you're
rid of them.
selling, right?
I
Because,
get rid of them. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think sadly, well, let's start this way. Once a month, we do a coffee chat, and I call it the Motivational Monday Coffee Chat. And we go into a room, and I'll pull up 3 different weeks' words. One of them we just had a coffee chat a week ago at the end of the month. One of the words was self. The other word was shit. I don't know, maybe resilience. And another word was whatever it was. And I'll have someone read what I do. It gives you the definition, then read it. Then I'll look around the room and ask, what do you feel when you read that? Someone will say, well, I like the way it talked about how I could be better. There's a better you out there, and you showed us in this document. Or someone might say this, or someone might say that, and it's just a way to communicate, to exactly your point, to get the team, without me saying it, to think how I think, to think that direction, but still how you think, but together, bringing it together to say how I think. I put on paper, I'm transparent. I want you to tell me, Chris, so Chris, what did you think of that word? Well, Daren, I think you're kind of full of shit. I think that you always push on sports and you use analogies from sports when I think this could be applied this way. And I'm okay with saying, Chris, that's a great point. Now, I'm not full of shit, but the purpose of that was to get you to actually comment that way. We need to hear perspectives of how people think. And I used to have on my board in my festival team prior to Route 91, and I had young kids, and it's why I started this little Monday motivational, was to try to teach them, because I felt horrible that what if something happened at an event, and I've got these young kids that I've pulled from UNLV that are young like I was as students, and how am I going to teach them everything I know in such a short window? So I was doing this process of these words, and then I called them in my office one at a time, and I'd say, who are you, Chris? And then you would answer. And then I'd say, who are you, Chris? And you'd answer it again until I was satisfied with, who you are. And it took a while. Then I would say something along the lines is, Chris, if who you are is, and I'd say these names of things you described, where do you do who you are? Now I'd get a little deeper. Before you know it, I'd have about 6 things that you would open up to, and you'd be wide open now. And then when I was done, I would sit everyone at a table after I've done everyone who. And I would then say, Christopher, this other Christopher, I got to learn about who you were. But for us to be a great team, the other 9 people need to understand your strengths and your weaknesses, because you shared with me who you are when you're strong. but you didn't share with everyone else who you are when you're weak and what makes you weak, what makes you insecure, what makes you feel uncomfortable. So one by one, I went through the whole team and everyone spoke. And the whole idea was to be able to say, now, Chris, the next time you have a need from Paula, you now know how she thinks and how she feels about a lot of things. How will you address her differently when you need to be able to order 250 barricades, 3 forklifts, and XYZ number of dumpsters by Friday? How would you approach her now? And now everyone got it. They shook their head and said, yes, of course. Why would we create so much dissension amongst people by just not understanding who they are first and then be able to talk to them? Because you'll change the way you talk if you knew how they're going to behave after. So that was the tool, and that's the tool I've used here. And individually, just trying to show that these are young kids between 23 and 30. And I've lived 5 lifetimes since they've, even seen anything. So I try to share the power of you and this world of technology with their phones and all that bullshit. I want them to realize, if you just go stand in front of the mirror and just say one thing, I am the greatest influence in my life, past, present, and future. And that's how I help my team after the Route 91 incident heal. And, people were devastated. They were wallowing. They were sad. They couldn't get over the thought that we saw a girl in a wheelbarrow with a hole in her head, another person with their face torn off, and they just couldn't get out of their way. And I couldn't, after 2 weeks, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't keep showing up and sitting and looking at my 8 people just suffering through things that nobody knew how to fix. Because how? What psychologist is going to come in and know that? The one psychologist that came to see me, because we were mandated to have to see him before we could do our next event, which was not for close to 10, 11 months. I made him cry. Not because I said anything mean, but because I started by saying, you don't know me. So how am I going to talk to you about something I saw at Route 91? And if you don't know me, the guy I introduced to you earlier today, the 7-year-old and the 14-year-old and the guy that thinks this way, how can I tell you why I've been able to recover from this Route 91 different than my 8 other friends? And why I chose to take it upon myself to say, your practices are real, and they come from books, and they come from real life situations that you guys are probably great at. But let me share this to you, because the gal asked me one day, she said, Daren, why is it that you have this behavior? And I said, how about this? Let me ask you this question. And they're both sitting there. And I said, have you ever kicked a game-winning field goal with 3 seconds left and there's 40,000 people in the stadium? Half of them hate you and half of them love you. Have you done that? Mm-mm, you haven't. Have you ever stood on a pitcher's mound and have to walk out with 3 and 2, bases loaded, and you got 1 pitch? You're going to throw a strike, you're going to throw a ball, or the guy's going to knock you out of the park. Have you done that? Mm-mm. Nope, you haven't. How about this? Have you ever? And so I was going one by one, and I said, unless you've done that, how do I tell you how I felt in my moment of truth during Route 91? Because if you don't know me, you can't understand me and what I'm thinking when I'm running and there's bullets flying and I'm seeing people like war blown up, and you're going to ask me how I should behave when you don't know how I think. So to me, I'm not a psychologist, but I do understand people, and I do understand some heartache, and I do understand feeling, and I do understand what my 8 people were going through, and I couldn't take it anymore. And we all almost got in a fight one day when I told them, guys, we have to stop wallowing now. We got to find a way forward. We've talked about it. We've shared the stories. We all hurt. Now we're going in the bathroom one at a time. So I dragged him in the bathroom, turned off the light, had my thing written on the mirror. So when I turn on the right light, don't ask any questions, just read it. Turn off the light, put him in the room, shut the door, and go in there with them. Turn on the light, they read it. I am the greatest influence in my life, past, present, and future. Turn off the light. We're just sitting there and it's weird. And they're like, this is weird. And I said, listen, I ain't got a textbook or a fucking plan that tells me how to do this. I just think it'll work. Just trust me. Click on the light, say it again. They did. Turn off the light. Did it 5 times. Out. Next person. I did them all. So now, in my opinion, I had an anchor because they said it. And I asked them, do you believe that? And they would be like, are you going to tell me that God or Jesus makes those decisions for you? Because last time I checked, he gave you a wonderful gift. It's you and a brain and the ability to think. But you're the coach. You're the guy. Matter of fact, and I made a joke all the time. I got a text from Jesus right here. Look, there's a picture of him. I showed a picture and it said underneath, Daren, please tell Chris that I've given him every gift he needs. All he's got to do is apply it. So I that was my fun in a time that was very stressful because they were looking for answers. And the answers were right in front of the mirror themselves. And so we got through it. And we ended up having 3 or 4 unbelievable festivals after we recovered. And then they sold the land and then COVID hit. But those 2 psychologists that cried realized at that time I may have been a little different than the others. But it wasn't because I was trying to be different. It was because I'm not going to listen to you. Tell me after I tell you that I saw a person with a hole in their head in a wheelbarrow with no shirt on and her breasts are out, and the shirt that was probably on her is on a man below us whose leg looks like it was blown off, but it's tied on there. And then for me to have to question, was that the husband? Who died first? And then who was here to save? And did they need that for the tourniquet? So what do you want me to tell you, Mr. Psychologist? What could you tell me that's going to make me better? Next thing you know, they're crying. And so I think that's when I realized a little more about myself and what I've been faced with when cancer came, when I lost my dad in a horrible situation, and other things that were very trying. I felt like because of what happened when I was 7, I built this mechanism, I think. Who knows? I don't think there's an answer.
There's some very powerful things you just said, but one thing I was struck with, and you used the word a while back about trust, right? And those people who went through that horror with you trusted you to help them through it. And you talked about your current company and working with the kids, right? To get them in front of other people to own up who they are requires a lot of trust that you're doing it for the right reasons and the right motivation, yeah? And that probably only comes from you're successful, you've got confidence. You don't need to misuse any of that. You know, you're doing it in a coaching way because you want them to be better and you want them to learn from you, right? But you want them to know themselves. But I'll be interested in how you feel you communicate that trust, right? Or do you just think it's something people sense in others?
I don't know if I have I don't know when I'm creating the trust. Actually, I think I coached a brand new kid for the first time this weekend. Little kid's going to be an 8th grader. What I saw the first day is rough, and I'm very transparent with it. I let them know that we have a plan. This plan will get you there. My plan will get you to become the best kicker you decide to be, how you decide to work, how you decide to follow the drills that I give you. I will guide you. Sometimes, if they're old enough, I could say, I'm like AAA. You might know what AAA is. Some people might know what AAA is, but in today's world, these kids only know how to Google map where they're going. AAA in the olden days was your old grandpa went down to AAA and said, we're traveling to the Grand Canyon. Can you tell us the best route? And some man took a yellow Sharpie and went through a page and found it. And if you're lucky, they Xeroxed it, and off you went. And you found your directions. So I feel like I'm AAA to a lot of people and helping them get from point A to point B to be their very best they can be. And if they do that, I like to say that if you're the best you could ever be at this drill, just the drill, you might be the best there's ever been when it's time to kick. But the drill's first. The details of the drills are first. And it's what I preach around here at times when we're in that group session and someone brings up something. I'll say it's not the big things, it's the little details. It's how we secure these hotels. It's how we secure these experiences. It's how we secure confidence in that when we say we're bringing 250 people to this venue and we do it, it allows us to prove that our word means something, and the fun in the experience that people will always want you back. So I think trust comes from your results of what you share with them. And as they find that it works or they feel better, you can just see it. They trust you for that. They can count on you for that.
So where are you taking this business next? Yeah, I can understand now how you build your team. You're building a great team. So where are you taking it next?
Well, we're really fortunate to have just a brilliant partner in Andrew Satoris who understands the world of VCs, venture capitalists, understands the world of money and how people want to be a part of things, how to reach levels of people that I don't speak with. They're not in my native tongue. Don't care. It's I'd say it's my weakness, and I tell them all the time, my weakness is your strength. I don't think about making money all the time and how much I can make or how much we can make. Now, what I do and how I do it will turn on people who like to make money. So I like to live on that side of the fence, not count it, not today. So it makes us a great team that way. And I think our next move will be, when we started the company, we got off to a fast start. We got 15 million from a venture capitalist that said, we love what you're doing. I don't think we've even spent it because we were able to generate revenue from what we were doing. I think the next play will be, there'll be companies out there that realize the behavior has to change in buying. There are other people that do other things similar to what we do, but not at the level we do it in terms of, so when you pick an event, Chris, you pick either a high VIP experience, or you might be a P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. And that's just price one, price two, price three, price four, price five. And in every one of those categories are a demographic of people, type of person. The Super Bowl that's coming up will be taken care of by a company called On Location. On Location will create unbelievable experiences that might cost you on the low end 10,000, on a high end 50 grand, that allow you to do A, B, and C and D when you come to that city. There's always a market for that. Now, there's not thousands of those, but there's handfuls of those. They've been successful at that. We believe that companies like that are going to realize, holy smokes, this Jampack really gets it. They get it on every front. They can be baseball, football, soccer, concerts, music, conventions, Bitcoin, SHOT Show, big convention groups that come to the markets that want to be able to do more for their delegates. We fit a need for everyone. It goes back to that very first comment that we made. When you can meet the need of everyone else first, yours will get met. Right now, we're just now hitting the needs of so many more genres of the business. And I think someone's going to realize that's a real valuable product right there. And hopefully at that point, someone says, what can we pay you for it? That would be fun. That'll be new for me.
Brilliant. Well, I think we'll wrap on that.
Okay.
That's been a really fascinating conversation. Thank you for that and being so open about
Yeah.